Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Jesse Lee Falls podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Um, I'm not going to lie, you guys. I'm on fire. I'm on fire. I just feel super good. I feel super productive. I'm feeling really optimistic. And I just want to let you guys know that I've decided that this year is going to be the year. I had a really good year last year. I was kind of engulfed in a lot of different projects that were going on simultaneously, and with gigging, touring around, doing studio work, making music videos, um, and then right at the end of 2025, I decided that I wanted to make a movie. And I know that that probably sounds pretty crazy to a lot of people out there who, you know, I mean, I think we all know people and just, I would say people in general, you know, people joke around about making movies all the time. I'd like to make a movie, but nobody really knows how to do that. They don't even know, where to begin most of the time. It's just like with a lot of creative endeavors. We like the idea of doing these things, but putting anything that's actually, to actually initiate anything or to try to implement any kind of idea into practicality sometimes it's just like it becomes very delusional because the map doesn't match the terrain, sort of sort of a thing. So I wanted to kind of use this episode as basically I wanted to point out that if if you're somebody who thinks deeply about things, um, if you're the songwriter for your group, if you're the one that comes up with like a lot of the lyrics, if you're somebody who thinks deeply on things, you know, don't be surprised if people find you annoying. Uh, I think these days, and I don't think it's just these days. I think that this is just the way it's been through history and time. Nietzsche talks about the faceless masses. And I can't help but feel that like 99% of the population really is that. They really are just the faceless masses. People who are willing to go with the crowd, people who are willing to go with, uh, a oh gosh, what's the term? To go with like a general consensus. I think there's just a lot of weakness, and then but people have these, grandiose ideas that oh, I sure would like to be the one in the spotlight, or sure would like to be the one leading things. I sure would like to be the one in charge of things. And it's like most of you guys just have no idea what you're talking about. Those positions would crush you because you're just not. You don't have a level of depth to you that would be able to sustain you in an extremely excruciatingly high pressure situation. Um, and I so for the for the very small percentage of people that are out there that think deeply and that are actually even critical thinkers, people who think about their ideas, not just people who think their ideas are right, but somebody who will actually think about their ideas. And I go back to Nietzsche because Nietzsche was the best at that. I think he was the best at that. Like he was like the one philosopher that was really he was famous for criticizing his own work. You gotta, I mean, to me that is the epitome of somebody who's really trying to seek truth. It's like we have ideas, we have good ideas, we have bad ideas. We have ideas that we think maybe work. We have ideas that when we go to implement them, they fall apart, they crumble, right? Because we think, oh, the theory's good, but in practicality, it actually doesn't work. I think communism fits that bill. Not to go there, but just using examples of systems that you think might work, but when you put them into practice, they fail miserably and cause horrible destruction. So, getting back to the fact that if you're a person who thinks deeply, people probably find you annoying. So here's my little, here's my little 2 cents for you guys out there. That because here's the thing: if you're an artist, you probably do think deeply, and you're probably punished for that. You know, because and you got to understand something: 99% of the population are faceless masses. These are people that actually they don't mind being told what to do. They don't mind going and working jobs that maybe are kind of meaningless to them. Or actually maybe it's not even that. It's not that they're like willing to do it. It's just that they're not willing to go against things, because when you go against certain things, then it makes your life a little more uncomfortable, because you're putting yourself out there as like, hey, I don't really agree with this, right? Because it takes bravery. It takes courage to be willing to stand out, to go against the grain, to go against the faceless masses, okay? But here's my point to all of this. If you guys are being artists, that's your fucking job. Okay? It's like, that's your fucking job. An artist's job is to straddle the line between chaos and order. So if your art is too orderly, it probably sucks. If your art is too chaotic, it probably sucks. That's the job of the artist, is to think deeply. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean, don't put out things that are shallow. And then I can also hear, like, the pushback on that from some of the business side. Well, sometimes shallow sells. It's like, okay. That's why you guys always have to constantly be reevaluating why you're doing what you're doing. Man. I mean, look, if you want to like boil the meaning of life down to sales, that's what I'm saying. See, I understand that, like, I'm annoying because I look into these, what a lot of people would just consider to be pretty normal day-to-day concepts, and I don't look at things like they're just normal day-to-day concepts. Like, I have to dig really deep into what is that concept really saying, because what it's saying is how does your behavior, how do you behave in accordance with that idea? Does that idea make your behavior better? Does that make idea make your behavior indifferent? Does that make your behavior worse? So when I'm talking about depth equals annoying, if you are somebody who, if you start trying to talk about things that are deeper, maybe you're somebody who likes to talk. I like to talk about philosophy a lot. That fucking really annoys people. It really annoys people. I made the mistake of talking about Nietzsche one time. I was at a party full of musicians. was, there was one guy, there was like one or two guys, that were hanging in there with me, and they were actually, engaged in the conversation. One of them was a teacher, and the other guy was just kind of into that. He's into philosophy and stuff like that. But I'm hanging out with musicians and artists, and I was basically like gaslit by one of the other guys there at the party who I've known forever. Um, but we were talking about Nietzsche. Like Nietzsche got brought up somehow, and because Nietzsche was he was just very bold and open about where he was coming from, especially when it came to art. He looked at art and music as like these things were like ultimately like the tools of transcendence, man. I mean, Nietzsche was a freaking deep thinker. Like nobody, like I don't know who thought more deeply than that guy, other than probably Christ himself. I mean, the guy was he was annoyingly deep. A lot of people find him annoying. A lot of people don't like Nietzsche. You know, they think that, well, the Nazis tried to take some of his philosophy, and they tried to spin some of his philosophy to suit their own stupid selfish aims, and these people were not the representatives of Nietzsche's work by any means. Because if you know anything about Nietzsche, he was a beautiful, that guy had a beautiful soul. And I mean, you don't write, so a person doesn't write the way that guy wrote, and like there's like not some beautiful intrinsic worth there inside of that dude had a soul that was way too big for the vessel that carried it. His soul was so much larger than his body. It was just incredible. He was incredible. And the reason why I bring up Nietzsche is because Nietzsche was very adamant about talking about what would happen, what happens to art, and what's probably going to happen to art and music in the future is that it's going to be pathologized. We're really good at pathologizing things that are intrinsically good. Music is intrinsically good. Okay, I really think that. I think that music is like it's actually probably it's a properly functioning religion. It actually does the things that religions are supposed to do: bring people together in a accordance with celebration and dance and vibrations, unity. Anyways, I mean, it literally does all of the things that religions are supposed to do. So, which is a really good point. Joseph Campbell pointed out that, something to a little bit of information for you guys. Joseph Campbell said that the definition of religion, religion has one purpose. Its purpose is to put you in accordance with your environment. So if your religion isn't putting you in accordance with your environment, one of two things is happening. You're doing it wrong, or you need to find a new religion. Okay? So that's what I'm saying is like, music does that. It puts us in accordance with our environment. So I think it's actually a proper functioning religion. And it's actually, like I heard Jordan Peterson say, that he thinks that music is actually almost like a microcosmic example of how society and the universe works. Which, boom, done. Perfect. Like, love it. Love it. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to take you guys a little bit down this rabbit hole of, if you're a deep thinker and you like to talk about ideas and you like to dig into things, like what got me to do this episode was the last episode I did, which was on friends. Like, maybe your friends are the problem, and maybe you have a bad definition of what friend is. And so I literally took apart the word friend on the last episode, and I just dissected it. Like, friend, I don't think friend really means what we think it means. You know, like that famous saying from The Princess Bride, you know, you keep saying that word, but I do not think it means what you think it means. And like, we've literally robbed the meaning out of words. Like, so for me to even go into a word like friend and dissect what that word means to me, what I think it means to others, and some of the new meaning that I think that it means, and some of the old meaning that I think it doesn't mean anymore, and that's annoying to people. That's annoying. People don't want to dissect what the word friend is, because that means they have to go and like actually observe or re-observe or reflect on who their friends are and what, like, wait a second, like, that kind of like redefines my relationships with these people that I consider friends. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to do that. So if you're a deep person, the one way that you could probably tell that you are a deep thinker, or a person who wants to think deeply and kind of like delve way deep into what people would consider trivial, is, are you alone most of the time? If you're alone most of the time, then yeah, you're probably a deep thinker, because people find you annoying. And that's okay. I want you guys to know that, like, people find me annoying. I'm annoying, man. Like, that's why I have, you know, I'm, like I said on my last one, I have business allies, man. Like, my friends, they can only take so much of me. They can only take so much of me. Because I'm, you know, I'm intense, and I only live with purpose, and I have sense of urgency. I live on the Northwest Coast here in Oregon, and sense of urgency is like, literally, that's just that's blasphemy around here. You don't say terms like sense of urgency on the Northwest Coast, because it pisses people off, because they're slow, and they like their slow living. They don't want disruptors. They don't want, you know, what they would call big timey. They like their little coastal lives. They just want to be kind of left alone, but at the same time, they still all harbor feelings of, you know, and delusions of grandeur and grandiosity for themselves, but yet they don't like a competitive. Um, they don't want to compete with big fish. They want to stay small fish so they can compete with small fish, so that way they can feel big. And it's annoying, okay? It's annoying. It's annoying to people like us who are really, like, some of us are actually striving not to be good. We don't care about being good. You know, good is a bad word, because some of us are actually shooting for greatness, and some people are going to call that narcissistic. They're going to call it, you know, pretentious. They're going to call it fucking psychopathic. I don't know. But that's the point, you guys, is that you think that you can get into the 1% and not make waves. You only get to a small percentage like that because you were willing to piss people off. Not because you were intentionally trying to piss people off, because you were willing to piss people off. So those things are what I'm talking about, as far as like looking more deeply into these, you know, these concepts can be very trivial and shallow if you're a trivial and shallow person. But every concept has like major depth. Like, you have to get down to motivational reasoning and basic principles. I mean, why are you doing what you're doing? And it's that kind of deep thinking that is going to annoy other people. But you have to be willing to do that. If you're not willing to annoy other people, then maybe you're not that deep. So I do start to think, you know, that's why I'm naming this episode, you know, deep equals annoying. Depth equals, you know, alienating people. Not out of, because you're having a fun alienating people. It's just that you're not willing to water things down in a way to just make people happy or comfortable. You're a person who values ideas, and you probably value discourse, and you're probably looking for other people to have discourse with, and some sort of intellectual discourse, and being able to speak deeply with others. I made the mistake of trying to go to a local philosophy talk. I had a philosophy professor here at the college years ago, a decade and a half ago, and I like the guy. He's really good at what he does, and he does a local philosophy thing where he just kind of gets people together, and it's like a kind of like a round table thing, right? Where it's just like, you can just come and be part of it. And he'll lay out a certain premise or whatever, a topic, and then everybody kind of discusses. They go around. So I actually did that. I think I did that once, where it was like I did the round table thing one time, where it wasn't just him doing a speech. And I regretted it. I regretted it because I went there because I'm a deep thinker. Okay. And when I'm not there to debate people, I'm there to talk and to discuss and use discourse to come to places to where we find agreement and fundamental. We can maybe get to like a place of agreement with on fundamental principles. And it was a mistake. It was it was a mistake. I shouldn't have done it, because let me put it this way. I felt like I put myself in a place where I felt like I ended up like I was debating, that people were there to debate me. There's something about me that people don't really like. I guess I came off conservative or something. I don't know. They're very liberal people, it turns out, which I didn't know. I didn't know anybody there, and I went there because I'm a deep thinker and I wanted to speak with other deep thinkers. And what happened was I basically was punished for being a deep thinker. I was pushing back on some of the things that they were saying, because they were talking about how competition isn't good in society. And I was pushing back, saying competition is absolutely necessary, and that there's a way to pathologize competition, but there's also a way for constructive. There's actually a positive side to competition. And man, they didn't want to hear it. They called me a conservative, inadvertently, So like they didn't even have really the guts or the balls to just come out and be like, oh, well, obviously you're a conservative. No, it was like this passive way of calling me a conservative without calling me a conservative. So look, I'm just telling you guys, if you're a deep thinker, you're probably alone quite a bit, and you're probably punished quite a bit for thinking deeply, because you're annoying. People find us annoying. So if that's happening to you, look at it as a marker, as you're doing the right thing. That's a positive marker. It lets you know that you're on the right path and you need to keep going. And you do not let the 99% of the faceless masses dictate your journey and your path. This is your path. Okay? So, boom. Love you guys. I'm going to keep putting out videos, man. I'm on a hot streak right now. So you guys are probably, this is what I'm shooting for. I'll just put this out there. I'm shooting for doing five episodes a week. Okay. I'm gonna get off my ass. I've been telling you guys that like I'm out here to crush it. I'm out here to show you guys that I'm out here to crush it because I want you guys to go start crushing it. Okay? It just feels better when you feel like you're like not totally alone in it. Sometimes like, you know, I'll nerd out and watch podcast stuff just because I start feeling like, man, I'm just by myself. I don't have anybody to bounce ideas off of. So I start flipping through podcasts and I start looking at business stuff and music stuff like Rick Beato. Love Rick Beato, by the way. Man, check out, love Rick. Love you, Rick. Um, uh, just, you know, if you start feeling alone, like you just don't have anybody, I put on podcasts, man. I nerd out. I listen to these other guys and they make me feel like they're my friends. You know, it makes me feel like I've got like-minded business people around me. So if you don't have like good people to be around that are business minded, that are like you, start watching podcasts. And I'm not even kidding, man. I know it sounds kind of dorky. Start watching podcasts and start putting yourself around these other like-minded people. Even though it's one-sided, I'm telling you, it psychologically starts changing you. It starts making you actually feel like you are around these people and that these people have influence on you. Not just, you know, not being an influencer. Because, like, here's the thing. I don't want to be a digital influencer. I decided I want to be a digital inspirer, okay? So some of these people are influencers, and I think the whole influencing thing is just that's a bubble that's about ready to pop. Nobody gives a shit about being influenced. People want to be inspired, though. So maybe I can start that. Like I'm going to be the first digital inspirer. Okay, I want to inspire because influencing is like, oh, you people are so stupid that like if that you're influential. Like I can influence you because you basically you're sheep, and uh, you know you're sheep. I'm going to treat you like sheep. That you're you know I can influence you. Like you can't think for yourself. I'm going to give you a bunch of bullshit propaganda or whatever, one-sided information or whatever. That's influencing. Inspiring is showing somebody something of value through an example, and then that triggers something in that person and they go, oh, you know what, that's actually something that I would like to do for me. And they do things on their own recognizance because you've just set a good example. That's inspiring. You can't influence if you're trying to influence somebody, like you're kind of a piece of shit. I mean, I'm just saying, like in the real world, face to face, who talks that way to somebody face to face? Well, hey, I'm an influencer. Like, wait, like you're here to like influence me? Yeah. Like you're going to get punched in the face. You can't tell people that you're around them because you're there to influence them. You guys know that sounds fucking ridiculous. But for some reason, like in the digital world, it's okay to call yourself an influencer. If I had somebody around me that came around me and told me that, oh, I'm an influencer, like I would look at them as like an enemy. Because that's parasitical, man. I'm an influencer. I'm here to influence you to do things. What? To think certain ways. I'm an ideological mastermind, and I'm a fucking cult leader. Like seriously, what are the differences between being an influencer and being a fucking cult leader? It seems to me like you guys are using the same fucking mechanics. I should know. I was a cult leader. Just kidding. I tried to do that deadpan, man. I was like trying to like But seriously, man, it's like it seems like it's the same mechanic. So I don't want to do digital influencing. Fuck that. I want to be a digital inspirer. Okay. It's like, oh, hey. It's like when we were kids, right? The reason why we had music heroes and guitar heroes and band heroes and just heroes in general is because we liked what they did. We liked what they did. We liked the example they set, and then we were like, man, we want to embody that. We want to do that. Mimic that. Yeah, like copy that to a degree to where we can start creating our own thing, you know. That wasn't like being influenced. It was being inspired. We were inspired by those people, by those heroes. We weren't influenced by them. Being influenced by somebody is like, that means like that person is like around you. They have influence on you because they're around you. You know, like some of you go to work with every day. That person has influence on you because you're around them every day. You might start actually accidentally kind of talking like them, start taking on certain, you know, characteristics. That's influence. And it's somewhat parasitical. It sounds parasitical. Okay? So again, here I am thinking way too deeply and probably annoying a lot of you. But you know what? It's kind of like Kierkegaard said. Kierkegaard, philosopher, mid-1800s. The Industrial Revolution's going off all around him. Things are becoming easier. They're creating things that are making things easier on people for society, making things more efficient, making things more convenient. And Kierkegaard was like this rich aristocrat guy who was basically like a student. And he was a philosopher. He sat around, you know, talking philosophy. He was like, you know, he was wealthy. He didn't really have to like work or anything. And he realized that maybe his job in life, maybe his position in life, was that he wasn't going to create or invent anything that was going to make things easier on people. And his idea was, you know, I think maybe one day things are going to become so easy on people that people are going to actually, they're going to want challenge. They're going to want optimal challenge. That's what they'll value. They'll actually value doing hard, difficult things again when things become so easy. And so he thought that maybe his position in life was, maybe it's my job to make things a little bit more difficult on people. Maybe it's my job to make things a little bit harder on people, because there has to be some sort of a balance when things are becoming so much easier. Like maybe it's my job to maybe make things a little bit more difficult and hard. And how do you make, and this was actually a point that I pointed out in that philosophy round table, and they freaking laughed at me. This one woman, she just straight up looked at me and shook her head no. And it's like, that's horse shit. Like, people actually want optimal challenge. We actually don't want things to be so easy on us because it's boring. Things get boring. And if you're a deep thinker, then you're probably annoying people. And that's exactly what I was able to go to a philosophy talk and annoy half the people at that table, because I was obviously thinking probably deeper than them. And it challenged them, and they got annoyed by it. So if you're annoying people, it's probably because you're a deep thinker. You know. But then again, you know, I got to take that back, because not everybody who's annoying is a deep thinker, and not everybody who's a deep thinker is annoying. But I'm just saying, if you annoy people because of your thought process and because you're willing to like look into things way deeper, I'm just letting you know you're on the right path, you guys, and keep going, man. That's how you get to the 1%. The 1% is just the people who are willing to do or not do what the 99% are doing or not doing. So, all right, guys, I love you. Again, think deeply, be annoying. Cheers.